Hello and welcome to Model Minutes. This video is a quick build of the FW190 A-8. It comes as a starter kit from Airfix, and in the box you get 3 sprues of plastic parts and 1 sprue of clear parts. There are included a small selection of paints, a little glue and a paintbrush. The first step from the instructions is to identify the parts that make up the cockpit. Upon identifying these, I cut them out using my knife. Here I am assembling them. These parts are quite fiddly, so a pair of tweezers might have been handy. The next thing I decided to do was paint some of the internal structures, primarily the wheel wells, inside the cockpit, and other small items that would be difficult to paint when they were attached to the model. The cockpit control panel comes as a decal that needs to be applied before inserting into the model. I applied a little bit of decal set solution to the plastic part, wet the decal and then slid it into position. It was then sealed using a matte varnish. The next step is to remove the main fuselage body from the sprues and glue them together, but you need to make sure that all the flash is removed. Before gluing them together, you need to insert all the components that go inside, such as the cockpit and other parts of the engine. This is quite a fiddly job, and I really should have used some masking tape to hold the parts together whilst it's set, but instead I decided to sit there and just use my fingers. At this stage, it tells you in the instructions to drill small holes in the wings. These are for components that you will attach later. A small drill bit or just the end of a knife will do. The engine comes in many parts and needs to be assembled separately. Here I am gluing the cowling on with the machine guns on the nose. The FW190 was armed with 2 machine guns in the nose and 2 cannons in each wing. I decided to cut off the elevators and then glue them on in a more realistic position for what they would be on the ground. On the ground, due to gravity, they would droop down as there was no one inside the cockpit holding the control column. These parts were then glued onto the aircraft. The next step is to ensure that the rudder is glued into position as well. The cannons are separate components and need to be installed before the 2 wing halves are joined together. At this stage it might be handy to use a clothes peg to hold the parts together whilst they set. When they are set, the lower wings can be attached to the fuselage body. Once again, some masking tape would be handy here to hold it all in place. The next step is to install the landing gear. This is quite a fiddly job, so make sure you take your time. I pre-painted these parts and then attached them onto the aircraft. As with most Airfix kits, the landing gear has a choice of assembly. You can install it in the closed position whilst in flight or in the down position on the ground. The next component was the drop tank to be installed. This is the long-range fuel tank that allows the aircraft to fly further, which can then be jettisoned to increase streamlining. The engine comes as many parts. These need to be installed separately, and when installed correctly they can be free turning. The engine parts are then installed into the main body of the aircraft. Once again with the engine I painted them separately. The next step was to use the paints that were included in the kit. The kit includes 4 acrylic paints. Acrylic paints are one of my favourite kinds to use because they dry quicker. The aircraft has a camouflage pattern which you need to copy off of the box artwork. Smaller details can be picked out in the appropriate colour after the main colours have been applied. The cockpit canopy needs to be painted separately before gluing to the model. Make sure you have a steady hand and follow all the guidelines on these plastic parts. The next step was to apply the decals. I applied some microset solution to ensure that they stuck to the model and looked like they were painted on. I wet the decals and then slid them into the correct position. The most difficult decal on this model is the nose. This is because on the nose cone it has a spiral pattern. You just have to make sure you take your time with this one. Once all the decals have been applied and have set, a matte varnish was applied over the entire model. This was to seal all of the decals into place. When the matte varnish is dried, I then used a dark wash to go over all the panel lines and bring them out. The final stage in this model is to glue on the clear canopy. I used a clear artist glue. The reason for this is because it doesn't create fumes which fog up the glass. And here it is, the finished model. A very good build with lots of fine detail. As a starter kit, probably not the first one I would pick as it has lots of small parts. But on the whole, very enjoyable to build and not a bad price either, retailing for about £8. Leave a comment down below letting me know what you thought of the build, and if you enjoyed this video, leave a like so you can support me in making more videos. Thanks for watching this video. I'll see you all again next time.